All right, so for the first part of the drum game videos, we're going to jump into the first project we mentioned in the last video, which is the production of a sound engine. Now, this sound engine is going to be designed in such a way where it can handle multiple sound APIs, not just the one included with XNA, which is X Audio 2, but also direct sound and potentially others that you may want to add. Now, in this particular video, what we're doing is we're tackling the ability to even access direct sound in the first place, the ability to use that inside of C#. To do that, we're going to make use of SlimDX, and that's all we're going to do here. We're going to grab SlimDX and get it installed. And
Basically, SlimDX is a library that gives you access to DirectX from inside of a .NET-based language such as C#.
Simple enough.
So this is kind of going to be our gateway, allowing us to use direct sound within our game.
Okay.
Now, to get this set up on our development machine, we need to go over to slimdx.org, and this is where you can find the SlimDX redistributable, the SDK, and various other information about SlimDX.
Which means you're going to get here and immediately jump to the download page, probably.
Right. In our case, we're going to want to jump straight to the software developer kit. So what we're going to do is go down here where it says Get Latest Release. We'll click on that, which will change us over to the download page. From here, we'll scroll down and we can see two releases. One is an end-user runtime, and one is the developer SDK. Now, the end-user runtime is what someone would need, for example, a customer or your friend would need on their machine in order to run your game if you built against SlimDX.
Okay.
So once we set up the game to use direct sound in this manner, that does mean that anyone using your game will need to have the SlimDX end-user runtime. Now, for us, since we're developing the game, we're going to need the developer SDK. So if we click on Get Latest Release from here, that'll bring up the download. Now, I'm going to cancel this one out because I have already downloaded the file ahead of time just to save time in getting this set up.
Cheater.
So, using our magic go backwards in time version of the internet, we already have this file loaded on our machine.
You made me curious. Let me ask you something. So we were talking earlier in the intro that this sound system we're developing, this sound engine, allows us to use the strict XNA audio API. So for example, like if we're making a game for the Xbox 360, and then when we play it on the PC, we could potentially use direct sound. Now, if we release this game and somebody was playing it on... what am I saying? If they were just playing it through XNA, would they still have to have this end-user runtime?
It all depends on how they were running it.
Okay.
If they were running on XNA, that would generally imply that they have the full source code.
Right.
And at that point, it would be up to them as to whether to get SlimDX and build against it or just remove that code altogether.
Okay.
If you had an end user getting the final compiled version of the game, then they're going to need whatever supporting libraries the game actually uses.
Okay, just making sure everybody's clear.
So, but in that case, any developer wanting to use your source code would also need the developer SDK, but any user wanting to run the final compiled version of your game would need the end-user runtime.
All right.
All right. Once we've downloaded the SlimDX SDK, we can simply run it to get it installed. This will bring up a simple setup wizard. We'll just hit Next to the initial screen. We will agree to the license agreement. And hit
Always
next.
read those.
Yep. And so, success. And next.
You're a fast reader.
And now we need to decide where to install SlimDX to. We'll simply leave this at the default path where it will install itself under C program files. So we'll hit Next to move on. You're then presented with some options to let you decide just how much you want to be installed along with SlimDX. This includes things like documentation, samples, and so forth. For our purposes, the default options here work just fine, so we'll leave all of this alone and simply hit Next. And then we'll hit Install. I'll give this a few moments here. It'll get all the files copied over.
So really, it's like your basic install where you're just spamming Next and then Finish.
Basically, that ends up working just fine. So here we are. We've finished the setup wizard. We'll hit Finish to that. And that takes care of the SlimDX installation.
Okay, so we've got SlimDX installed. We now have access to DirectX through C#.
And just to prove that fact, I've got a copy of Visual Studio loaded. As a matter of fact, let me get this one loaded up. Let us go and make a new project just to prove that SlimDX is available from the references and just prove that the installation did indeed work.
Sounds like a good idea.
Now we'll go over and start a new project. Just for the purposes of checking the references, I'm only going to start a console application. The reason I'm doing this is I can avoid saving this to the drive. That way we
Right.
won't have any files left over after this simple test run. So we'll hit OK. We'll make our new console project. We'll right-click on References, go down to Add Reference, and from here I'll hit the S key and make sure that SlimDX shows up in the available references that we have under .NET.
Perfect.
So this shows that we do indeed have a SlimDX as an available library for use inside of Visual Studio. So we'll cancel that out. We'll end up discarding this project altogether. This was just to allow us to look at that reference.
Yep, which means that our installation was successful and we are ready to move forward, which wraps up this video, doesn't it?
There is one thing I'd like to point out, and that is...
Oh, called it too quickly.
If for some reason you do not wish to explore direct sound in the creation of this game, you are free to skip the direct sound and SlimDX steps.
That's actually a really good point. The reason we're doing this is that the engine that we're building is designed in such a way where you could use multiple APIs. And one of the APIs we have decided to use is DirectX, or Direct Sound, if you will. And so we've got to have SlimDX to allow access to that inside of .NET. If you're just strictly, just bent on using nothing but XNA and Xaudio 2, you don't really need to do this part. We just want to make sure that it is presented.
That's correct. If you wish to skip all of the direct sound elements, all you have to do is skip the installation of SlimDX, and here in a few videos, skip the creation of the direct sound audio engine inside of the game.
There you go.
With those out of the way, then you would be free to use the rest of the code however you would like.
Yeah. All right, well, that really will wrap up with this video, so thanks a lot.